welcome to episode 29 of the IP3 podcast. Today we're going to be talking about how sometimes variance in your deck is a good thing. Uh, I am Alex Becker, joined by calling champion Mark Morrison. Um, as you might have noticed, our other two normal co-hosts are missing in action. We've had a lot of life events happening recently, which is also why we haven't put out an episode in a while. But Mark and I are going to provide you an episode today, and Kevin and Rhea will be back at some point. I'm not sure when that will be, though.
Yeah, definitely lots of life events happening on the IP3 team.
Yeah,
Um, Kevin with a newborn baby, Rhea with a big move. Like, that's definitely big life-changing events for both of them.
yeah. So podcasting kind of takes a back seat, which is understandable. But I figured I can yell into the void some more with Mark. All right.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk about the game of Flesh and Blood. Should be a good time.
Yeah. Speaking of the news, there's been a ton of news since we last had an episode, so I'm just gonna breeze through the highlights here. We now know that the next Pro Tour is gonna be in Singapore, which is exciting. I think
That's something you plan on going to, Alex, if you happen to qualify?
yes, I think my wife and I are trying to make that into our summer vacation. So if that happens, I'll be in London in April, and then um, try to go to that one, try to go to nationals, try to go to worlds. So if that all happens, I will be able to go to all of the big events this year, which will be super fun.
That'd be awesome. I know for me personally, Singapore is slightly too far away, and I'm already taking Europe as like our family vacation, taking 2 weeks there, traveling a little bit. So I don't think I'll be able to make Singapore work if I were lucky enough to qualify.
Well, lucky for me, going to all these qualifying events. If a bunch of people are like, "No, I'm not gonna go," then I'll just be in by default, right? Right?
Definitely have a higher chance of winning then.
Which is funny because in the Road to National season, I think this is the first season I've ever not top eight in an event. I also
Do you play many events?
I only got to go to three of them, but
Okay.
and one of them was the one that I had 1 hour of sleep. So
Still 0 for 3. That's definitely uncharacteristic for you.
yeah, that's okay. What about you? How was your Road to Nationals season?
I think I also only played in 3 events. I was fortunate enough to qualify in my second event. We were able to get there with Syndra. And then the first event, I top eighted with Victor, but I lost to a Viserai in top 8. And then my third event, I also took Syndra, and it was a quick 0-2 drop for that one.
Yeah,
Was
that's,
not my best performance.
we met up after round two. You're like, "Yep, see ya, I'm leaving."
But it
Debating the
was
day before, it was like, "Oh, it's an hour drive. I don't know if I want to drive all the way out there." And then you did it, and then promptly drove home.
it was fine. Luckily enough, it was an early enough tournament, so I lost before I think before noon. So I got home by 1 and just got to hang out with the wife and my dog, and enjoy the rest of my Sunday and get some chores done around the house.
I will say, speaking of Viserai, he's now officially living legend.
Thank
First,
goodness.
the first of the original 8 to living legend.
As a Dromai main player, I hate Viserai with a burning passion. But that's okay. I haven't gotten to play Dromai for a while now, and I haven't really had to feel that pain of the Rune Blade. But Rune Blades are really good at the game.
Yeah, as a person who plays warriors and illusionists and wizards, yes, rune blades are very annoying. Why did I pick the classes that are bad into rune blades?
Sorry, Kevin. I know Kevin is a big Rune Blade player and will be sad with Viserai leaving, but he still gets to play Vincent
Yeah.
and Aurora, but mainly Vincent.
Which will be funny because the uh, Kevin's not going to be able to go to London, even though he qualified for it. Um, and this is like an actual reasonable time to pick Vincent instead of playing Vincent and forcing it.
Was that Worlds he took Vincent to, or was that the like I forget which was that a Pro Tour he went?
He took it to Worlds Barcelona, and then also took it to Nationals last year.
Okay. Yeah, he was definitely taking Vincent for the vibes. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Back when Zen was ruining everyone's day.
yeah. Um, so I guess the other highlight of the news is we got a new banned and restricted announcement. CC, there were no changes. Living Legend, uh, Electromagnetic Somersault is restricted, so you can run one of that card.
That that restriction pains me as an Acilio enjoyer. Now Acilio is just unplayable in Living Legend. Acilio was never good in Living Legend. You shouldn't be taking it if you're trying to win the event. But the fact that you can no longer have three somersaults in your deck just really diminishes the power level and the ceiling that Acilio could offer. It's just another example of Starvo ruining the LL for everyone for another hero.
I feel like you even could have. Um, I feel like they could have just restricted the colors. Like you can only play reds, so that Starvo can't run the blue ones that are amazing for him. And then like the actual lightning heroes that play super cheap stuff, you could then play the reds in it still.
Maybe I don't I guess I don't know Starvo well enough, but the fact that that Somersault is a lightning card and this provides so much value, even on defense, I think Starvo would still happily play three reds.
I think so too, but then at least there wouldn't be so many of them. um,
That's fair, but that's also more confusing though, for especially for newer players. Like, hey, you can play one copy of a blue or yellow, but you can play all three copies of red. And I think like when you're designing a game, you want to make sure that your rules are um, as easily interpreted. No, that's not the right word, but easily consumed by its player base. Otherwise, if you make it too confusing, players just don't know what they can play and why.
uh, yes, I agree with that, but my pushback would be that I don't think there's any new players, and like they're gonna build a living legend deck
Mm.
first thing. Like I feel like most of the people playing the living legend format are the people who've been playing for a while and like their favorite hero is living legend or like they enjoy one of them. But I don't think you're getting somebody who doesn't know much about FaB like playing their first event as living legend would be my guess.
Nope, that's a fair and valid point.
All right. So in Blitz, Traverse the Universe banned. Uh, the Needles are banned, and Crown of Seeds is unbanned.
That one's really interesting. That they look at the power level of Blitz right now and they think Crown of Seeds is fair, which in my opinion they're probably right. Blitz seems like to be a really fast format, and I don't think Crown of Seeds will be able to slow it down that much.
Yeah, I think Oldhim Oldhim is Living Legend in Blitz, I believe. So they don't have to worry about Oldhim running Crown of Seeds, which was an issue before. A
Mhm.
lot of the wizards, which is what it was like really good against, are Living Legend and Blitz as well. And then so now it just allows Terra, the Earth Guardian, to run the Rampart and Crown of Seeds, and then also make a Might. So
It should be interesting. Obviously, if it becomes too powerful, LSS will not be afraid to ban it again. But I think they're in a good spot here, being able to unban one of their L's. No one wants their L's to be banned. They want to play with them.
yeah,
Oh, it does slightly feel bad for anyone who owned them when they was banned, and then they sold for a loss, and now they're rebuying back in again as it's skyrocketing in price.
That'll teach you to sell your cardboard.
Like I think this should be a shout out to our piece of advice for all of our users, our not users, listeners in. It's like when you see an L that is very cheap, whether it's banned or not, maybe you should just pick it up if it's like $5, $10. You never know. Maybe you'll play with it again one day.
Yeah,
Especially as the game goes on and they power creep inevitably is going to happen. They'll print more powerful cards, and just because a card was powerful in the past doesn't mean it will be as powerful in the future.
just look at Flick Knives. That was an $11 card because nobody really ran Flick Knives, and now like there's two or three decks that are centered around it, and it's over $100 now.
That and they also got needles banned.
Yeah, true.
I guess maybe
I
flick
feel like the
knives.
retrieve keyword got needles banned, but
That's fair.
all right. And then in Commoner, which is the big shakeup, I actually haven't played. I've played one Commoner event, but not for a long time. Uh, Rosetta Thorn is banned. Waning Moon is banned. Needles are banned, and Ball Lightning is unbanned.
I do not. I am not in touch with the commoner format in any way, so I know nothing. I have no opinions over any of these bannings.
Yeah,
Does commoner have like a living legend format too, where like heroes can LL? Or
uh,
because there's no like sanctioned or not sanctioned but seasons with commoner that no one's collecting LL points.
I believe that to be correct. I do know that Icelander is like the tier zero deck a lot because of Waning Moon. So then banning Waning Moon, it might be a way of like rotation air quotes where they don't have living legend heroes, but they'll just occasionally like ban stuff and unban stuff to like keep the format fresh. Possibly, I don't think they said that explicitly, but it would make sense to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And commoner, those are the young heroes, correct? It's not adult heroes.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, there's the melee format that is adult heroes, commons and rares.
Right, right. That makes
There's
sense. I know Chase is our buddy Chase is a big believer in the melee format and always is always trying to get games in.
Yeah, he runs a whole league about it. You can search for that Discord and join it and join the league if you'd like.
A shout out to Chase or AKA Croony Moons.
Yeah. All right, that's kind of the news. We kind of chatted about the Rojan Nationals already, but just the results in general, like Viserai with the most wins and is now living legend because of it. Aurora with 60 wins. New Syndra, Prism, what was that? Arachne Marionette, Enigma, Zen, Vincent. Seems seems like a pretty wide open meta with all of those heroes having double digit wins.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be really exciting seeing how the meta shakes out leading up to London. I think people are assuming that Aurora is gonna be public enemy number one, and but we won't really get to see the full power of Aurora until the Armory deck comes out. And then obviously New and Prism and Syndra are also top contenders in there. But I think it's all eyes on Aurora right now.
Yeah, it's because a week from today, because we're recording this on Friday, um, the Armory deck comes out, right? And then that
Yep,
weekend is the calling.
yep, the calling and Kobe.
Yeah. So odds are, well, the theory is that there's going to be a bunch of Auroras that convert and do really well. And then the next calling that's still before London will be everybody trying to counter Aurora in response to that. And then We'll see. We'll
I'm
see
not.
what London brings.
I'm still unsure like what Aurora loses to. I know Prism is an unfavorable matchup. I think Dash might be an unfavorable matchup, maybe. But other than that, I'm not really sure if Aurora has any counters. She has a lot of 50-50 matchups or matchups that she's favored into, but really nothing that like outright beats her.
Yeah, she's just a powerful, aggressive deck that if you just try to block her out, she has a combo that does quite a bit of damage. So, like even trying to bring a something like Victor to like play the clash cards and try to go that way and defend super well. She can just side into a Arc Lightning Flicker Whisk combo and kill you that way as well.
Yeah, and she blocks even though she has a lot of instants in her deck. She does surprisingly block pretty well.
Got
She has
a lot of armor.
a lot of armor.
A lot of armor.
Yeah, I was definitely considering playing Aurora for London. I know we're a month out. We still might, but unfortunately, I just don't find Aurora to be fun. So I'm probably not going to be playing her, even though she is probably going to be one of the best decks.
Weren't you telling me I don't care what deck I play, I'm just gonna play whatever the best deck is?
Yeah, and then I started playing Aurora and I wasn't having fun, and I was like, you know what? If I'm going to play games of Flesh and Blood, I want to make sure I'm at least having fun.
Yeah.
Um, like in my opinion, when I go to tournaments, if I'm not having fun and I have to win to have fun, then I probably shouldn't be at that tournament because odds are you're not going to win. There's only one winner at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Unless you're Michael Hamilton, it's probably not going to be you.
Yeah. Or Pablo. Um,
That's true. This is the Pro Tour, so I guess there are a lot more. It's even a harder tournament than just a North American calling.
yeah. Um, oh goodness. I forgot what my train of thought was. Oh yeah, yeah. Chase was asking me what my goal in London was. I was like, he's like, were you trying to win or are you trying to have fun? And my response was, I am trying to do as well as I can with a deck that I enjoy playing.
That's exactly how I feel. If I was just strictly going to have fun, I would play Acilio. It's the hero I have the most fun with. But Acilio has so many unfavorable matchups and almost no favorable matchups in the meta. There's a few warriors, but I don't think the warriors are going to make up a large percentage of the meta share. So I need to find a deck that's a little bit more fun and a little bit that's a little bit a little higher on the tier list. So listeners tuning in, if you want to make comments on what hero I should play in London that you think is fun, let me know because I'm desperately looking for this hero.
Mark even took to social media. That's how you know it's bad. To try to figure out what to play.
Yeah, I think I have like 5 posts total combined when it comes to Twitter and Blue Sky. Um, I'm just not really big on social media, but I was definitely feeling down earlier in the week just not knowing what hero to play. So I was asking for help, and I'm willing to listen. Any hero that you think is fun, I am willing to give it a try.
Yeah, I started this week with like four different options that I'm going between, and now that we're at the end of the week, I'm at 5 different options that I'm going between.
Are any of the heroes that you started with still in the running, or did you cut all those out?
No, they're all still there.
Okay.
I
It
just
would
I
have been
just added
funny.
one. You know.
Okay, it would have been funny if you started with 4, you eliminate 3 of them, but you added 4 more.
No, I'm not that crazy. All right. So should we get into the main our main topic here?
Yeah, let's do it.
That something that you wanted to talk about, um, and also have like a decent amount of experience with, is that oftentimes when you're building a deck, you're trying to reduce variance and get your hands, especially in this game, to be as consistent as possible, so that every 4 cards that you draw is a playable hand and does the thing that your deck is trying to do. Um, but sometimes for example, matchups that you're not favored into, sometimes consistency is bad, and you're just doomed to lose that match unless you add a way to high roll. For example, um, the the Viserai versus Zen match, which is a bit irrelevant now since Viserai is Living Legend, but the the longer game tended to um, benefit Zen because it gave him time to transcend and then find transcend cards again after shuffling to make the Zen state token, which blocked a ton of damage versus Viserai. So as the Viserai, you wanted to add the high variance cards like Gorganian Tome and um, sometimes Crown of Dominion for the gold slash cash in when that was still legal. Um, and then Sonata Arcanix, running all those cards to try to get it where your deck can be faster and end the game quicker, so Zen can't get to the point where he's going to get a ton of value off the Zen State token.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like when if you're in an unfavorable matchup, increasing the variance only seems to favor the person who is the underdog in the matchup. And where if you are the person who's favored in the matchup, you want to be as consistent as possible because if you play this game 100 times and you're favored, you're going to win more often than you lose. So you don't want to bring in extra variance, especially when it's a best of one. But speaking of uh, to talk more about why I think variance is maybe viewed in the wrong light when it comes to the Flesh and Blood community or just card game players in general. I think most people just want to eliminate all variance, but I'm always under the opinion that sometimes variance is a good thing. Not only in building your decks, but maybe taking the high variance decisions before deck building even starts. Like for an example, let's say we're drafting, and let's say we're in a pro quest and a limited pro quest, and it's draft in top eight. Your goal is to win the pro quest. Obviously, you need to 3-0 this pod. Um, that's your goal going into this pod, and you know that if you 0-3, if you 1-2, if you 2-1, that's all the same result where you don't get your qualification and you don't achieve your goal. So if your only goal is to 3-0 this pod, you should take the route that gives you the best chance to 3-0. Um, and sometimes that route might be just to force a hero from pack one, pick one. You know what hero you're gonna take. You're taking the best card, and you're just gonna force that hero, and you're hoping that you are lucky enough to be in the correct seat, um, and that you can have the best deck. Where if you try to stay open and try to draft your seat, you might have a very good functional deck because you're very good at drafting, but your deck might be less powerful than it could have been if you were just forcing hero to begin with. And just because your deck is good because you stayed open and you're consistent, there's a lot more 2-1s coming your way than necessarily a 3-0 when somebody else did take the chance, did gamble, did force a hero, and they were rewarded.
Yeah, that
Was when it comes when you really embrace this variance, you really have to be willing to accept the results. You're not always going to 3-0, and sometimes your draft is going to be a train wreck. But if it helps you achieve your goal, I think you always want to take the percentage points to help you achieve what you're looking for.
yeah. In all the tier three split format events that I have done, um, I haven't been in. There's no like top eight where you have to 3-0. So my strategy has always just been um, I'm gonna go. My goal is to go 4-2 in draft. So I'm gonna stay open. I'm gonna build a reasonable deck, and then as long as my constructed games go well, then I should be like in the top echelon of that tournament if I can 2-1 all of my drafts. But that works in that scenario where taking losses is okay. But um, when you were in the top eight of the calling Hartford, you took the whether I get second or eighth, I'm already in the top eight. They're all the second. The only difference is the 3-0. So that's what the strategy that you implied or applied was I'm just going to be KO from the very first pick, and the draft is going to center around me, and I will determine what the other people who are staying open end up playing by me taking all of these cards.
Yeah, there are a couple things going there. Some people might think that second, second, third, fourth, and fourth are also good finishes at the calling compared to fifth through eighth because you got to win, you get more money, with all positive things. But when I entered, for me personally, I entered that event, all I cared about was once I made top eight, I said, cool. I'm really happy I made top eight. Second through eighth place are all the same to me, so I'm gonna go for first, and I'm odds are I'm probably going to finish eighth or fifth through eighth and lose my first round because it's going to be a train wreck draft. But if I do get lucky that I force a hero happen to draft my seat, then I could be rewarded. I also wanted to take that strategy too because I thought that I was going to be one of the least skilled players in that draft pod. That draft had Tariq Patel, it had Michael Hamilton, it had Ellie Bird, who else? It had Cody Williams. It was a I'm sorry for everyone else who's also I'm not mentioning, but it was a very very high skilled draft pod. So I wasn't confident that I could necessarily outdraft and outplay all my opponents. So in order to help give myself the best chance of 3-0 in that pod, I thought I needed to take the higher variance route and force KO from the beginning.
And that's another way that you can uh, take the variance is deck choice aside, like deck matchup aside, is just um, if I'm the better player, I've been playing for the entire length of the game, and you just started last month. Odds are, like, I'm gonna have the advantage because I have all the information, all the practice. So if you're going to Road to Nationals or Battle Harden or something like that, you may want to play a little bit more high variance deck, maybe like Levia, where the highs are super high, and the lows are also pretty low. Sometimes you just kill yourself. So playing the high variance um, deck to beat the better players is also another way that variance isn't always bad.
Right, and also true, I think what you also want to do if you're definitely the less skilled player playing in a game against a higher skilled player, you don't necessarily want to be on the deck that wants long grindy games. The longer the game goes, the more decisions that have to be made, and the more decisions have to be made. Odds are if your opponent is more skilled, they'll make the correct decision more often than you will. So if I had to play a best of one against somebody who I knew was much better than I was, for whatever reason this format was, I get to choose my deck after knowing who my opponent is. If I know that opponent has a very high skill advantage against me, I wouldn't want to play something like Axe's Dory, where it's a very long grindy game where I can get value turn over turn, because I wouldn't be able to play that perfectly. I'd rather play a more all-in strategy type of deck, something more like a FaB or something like a Cilio, where the deck itself might not be good against most decks or against most opponents overall. It has a low win rate, but it does have that ceiling where you could kill your opponent in second turn, just by high rolling and getting extremely lucky. So if I ever happen to be in that scenario, I always want to be on the higher variance deck when I know I'm playing against someone who is much better than I am.
Absolutely.
Obviously those type of scenarios don't really happen often, so it's a reason why, especially when you're a really good player, you always want a deck that has low variance because you always feel like you're in control and you can use your skill to beat out most of your opponents. But going into Pro Tour London, everyone there is going to be extremely skilled. They're going to be all very practiced. They're going to be very good with whatever decks they're playing. So you have to make sure whatever deck you take that you can play it to the best of your abilities, but two, not be afraid of necessarily of not taking the best deck. Like if I believe Aurora is the best deck, but I don't think I can pilot Aurora to the best, compared to the best Aurora players, I'm gonna lose every mirror match because the other Aurora players will just be better than me. So that's a deck I should not be on if I know I can't pilot Aurora perfectly. So I should be on the deck that I know that I have a better chance of piloting. For example, Syndra. I think Syndra is a very easy deck to play, comparatively. where the lines are you don't really block, and your hands are face up, where you're just attacking every turn with go again. There is some skill in the sequencing of the attacking and how you do it, but the games are relatively short as in the number of turn cycles you actually see. So it helps I think increase variance there, that you're hoping that your first like 5 6 hands just beat your opponent's first 5 or 6 hands, and that's how you can really steal some games.
So what are some examples for you of like high variance cards to like put in your deck, or like specific heroes and cards that line up? Like we talked about Sonata Arcanix for Viscerai into Zen. Just like sometimes this card is going to be discard this card and do nothing, but sometimes it can be like draw 2 cards, deal 2 arcane damage.
Right. So I think a perfect example of that is when is the card Seduce Secrets when it's played in Acilio. On its face, Seduce Secrets is a pretty bad card. Um, it loses like all it does is let you see your opponent's hand, or I guess a player's hand, and the top card of that player's deck. It doesn't block, and it's a yellow. So its floor of Seduce Secrets is very very bad. But specifically in Acilio, Seduce Secrets can actually have a really, really high ceiling, and it could be a 0 for 10 on your combo turn. If you're able to have Seduce Secrets in your arsenal and you're comboing off with a Guard in the Flash and you popped your boots, now Seduce Secrets bounces a Guard in the Flash in your hand, it draws you a card, and since Guard in the Flash is a 4 attack and it's lightning, and if you happen to draw another instant that's lightning, like Seduce Secrets on its own could just net positive be a 0 for 10. So that's an example of just taking a specific card that when its floor it's really bad, it's pretty inconsistent. But if things line up, it can help really swing the game in your favor.
Another one that's high variance, although there's been a lot of math, so it's a bit less high variance than I think people have thought in the past. But is the Great Library of Solana in Prism. There's some matchups where like that is like getting that out is the game plan. It's like I need the extra card advantage in order to win this, but having this no block, no pitch, 2 cost card in my deck, sometimes you draw it and you just die, or you're forced to arsenal it and don't get to keep the card later, or don't end up drawing like I played Prism at the last Road to Nationals that I played, and there was a turn I played it, had 2 yellows in the pitch. It's like sweet, it's gonna be awesome to draw 5 cards. I drew I drew 5 cards and no yellow cards somehow. So it's like, well, this is really good, but like the variance of the rest of the deck screwed me over there. But
Yeah, that seems like a great choice. It seems like library. You said I've never done the math on Prism or playing library. I'm assuming there are some matchups where you just want to play it, and other matchups where you sideboard it out because the variance is too high and it's already a favorable matchup. So you don't need to have the extra variance within your deck.
right, for example, versus Syndra, Prism just wants to be drawing and attacking with heralds, so take it out there. But then, for example, Victor, which it's very possible they can just smash your face in before you get to your set up your board state. Um, Library was actually how I was able to come back from 40 to 0, 40 to 1 at the last round of my Road to Nationals. I was playing Prism, my opponent playing Victor. I was down to 1 life left, and like getting out library and being able to um, like set up the board state from there because I was drawing 5 cards was able to let me come back and end up winning that game.
That's awesome. And also like this talking about more variants too, about how variants can be good, but slightly off topic, off Flesh and Blood. It's like in the game of like poker, and we playing Texas Hold'em, and you're in a poker tournament, and let's say you're heads up against a player, and you know this player is better than you are, and you know in the long run, if you are able to play this person over and over again, they're going to be beating you. Um, there are scenarios where you don't want to play perfect poker against this person because you know, or I guess you don't want to make necessarily the correct play against this player because you know if you just play to the best of your ability, you're probably going to lose to them in the long run. But let's say you had a scenario where your opponent goes all in and you know you're behind in the hand, where if you go all in at the same time, you might only be like 40% to win the hand. Um, most people think you should just fold because obviously you're only going to win 40% of the time. But if this player has such a huge skill edge on you, and maybe this is your best chance to win, you go all in here and you have a 40% chance of winning, or you can just fold and try to find better spots, but maybe better spots don't come up, or maybe the opponent's skill just takes over, and this was actually the best chance for you to win. Because if you play normally, then maybe you have less than a 40% chance to win. So this wanted to show in this other how show an example how variance can be a good thing even in other card games. I know in the World Series of Poker, I think Jamie Gold did that. I forget what year he won the main events, but he was going up against Jamie Gold is the was the champion of the World Series that year, but he was at the final table against a pro player who was much better than him. Jamie Gold was just I think a movie director and doesn't have much poker experience. And he knew he was behind on the hand, but the pro player went all in, and Jamie knew that he probably had like a 40% chance, actually this exact scenario, a 40% chance to win the hand, so he decided to go with it. I think he went all in pre-flop with like king jack or king high, and I think the pro has like like pocket tens or jacks or something, and then I can be like in like a slight coin flip situation. I can knock him out here, and then we can just don't have to worry about him. So Jamie went with it, and it happened to work out for him.
And sometimes it won't. And sometimes you'll play the high variance cards and they'll get you killed, and then you'll be tempted to take them out. But you might have been destined to lose that game anyways. So
That's okay. If you're willing to take the high variance routes, you just have to live with the results. I know that's what I do, and any like at nationals and pro tours I've attended. At every draft, I've always taken the high variance route, to better or for worse. And there's a reason why I typically either 3-0 or 0-3 my draft pods. I usually 3-0 the first one on day one. I'm feeling good going to day two, and I implement the same strategy. And then because I took the high variance route, odds are I will do poorly. And it happens where I'm in day two and I just quickly 0-3 my day two draft pod. I go, yep, things aren't looking great, but I understand the risk I took doing it, and I don't feel I definitely would do it again. I feel like that gives me the best chance to set myself up for a potential top eight at those events. Um, but I know you take a much different approach where you like consistency. You like doing a 2-1 in each draft pod, but maybe 3-0. But I just rather give myself the best chance to always 3-0, even if it means submarining my tournament.
yeah, like drafting chain day two when you've literally never played that hero.
But that was an example of me actually deviating from my plan. That was Monarch draft, and my plan was to force Prism. It was the only hero I understood. It was the only hero I practiced. I did that day one, a great 3-0. I was doing that day two, but then I quickly identified that I was the fifth Prism in my pod, and that there were zero chain players. So I decided to, you know what, this is my time to the draft chain, but this was my fault where I had zero games practiced in the chain and I did not know the pick orders. So even though I picked the correct hero, I owed through that pod just because I did not have the skill to pilot it.
That was a very funny day. You and I both started the day with the same record, and by the end of the draft, one of us had dropped, and the other one was still playing.
It's okay. I don't regret my decisions. I did what I thought was gave me the best chance to win. And
Alright.
looking at our team too of our clips of all of our friends, I think I'm the only one that really embraces the high variance routes. I think most people on our team are more risk adverse, and they want to feel like they're more in control of their own destiny. So they try to take low variance decisions whenever possible. Where I just don't. I don't know if it's I just don't care, or I'm just more willing to accept that I don't have control over all the results that could happen. So I'm willing to roll with it, and whatever happens, I'm willing to accept.
Yeah, I'm willing to do that as well, but my draft strategy for, well, with exception of part the misfail, because blue strat. Um, but my strategy for every draft set has been and um, will probably continue to be like take the best card out of the first pack, take the best card out of the second pack, take the best card out of the third pack, and then see what I have already and then what has been passed to me at that point. Because after that pick and then the next one, you're halfway through the pod, so you should know if others are um, doing the mark strategy of just like picking a hero, it should be very clear what is available and where I should be. And if not, then I get to look at the cards that I've already picked and see like, oh, I have 3 warrior cards. I am now warrior, and I just lock that in for the rest of the draft.
Yep, it definitely makes sense. I know a lot of high level players in the game definitely don't like forcing. They much rather stay open. Because when you stay open, if as long as you're talented enough of identifying what everyone else in the pod is doing, you can almost always find your seat and almost guarantee that you won't be the O3, and you still have a really good shot at being the 3-0. Not because you have the best deck, but because you have a good enough deck and your skill can help carry you to the 3-0.
Agreed. Any other thoughts on variance and why it's not the worst thing in the world?
Um, not necessarily that because it's not the worst thing in the world, but whenever I hear people talk about variance, they always view variance as a negative light. You might be talking to a friend and asking them, "Hey, how's your day going so far at the end of day one?" And they give you a recap and they say, "Oh, I started off 4-0, and then variance hit me, and now I'm 4-2." I'm like, oh, so when you win, it's because you're good, but when you lose, it's because of variance.
Of
And I
course.
think that people misunderstand that variance is a good thing too. That maybe you won because of variance, but people just always always identify variance as bad, and I don't necessarily understand why that's people's train of thoughts. I don't know what's your experience there when you talk to people about variance.
Uh, yeah, that sounds pretty similar. Although there's sometimes, like that the Victor game that I played that I won 4-0 is was
Flaw
not
skill.
yeah, no, that was my deck rewarding me for 2 rounds earlier when it had did absolutely nothing against Enigma and I lost 41-0. So it's yeah,
So clearly, Alex, you lost because of variance, and you beat the victor because you're just too skilled at the game.
yeah, must be. That's what people tend to say, but I'm well aware that I should not have won that game versus Victor, but I did because there was an Arclight Sentinel on top.
And there's nothing wrong with winning because of variance too. I feel like people like want to discredit themselves that they of their accomplishments because they got lucky. But I don't. I think in life, like even in life in general, people don't understand how lucky that they truly are sometimes. Coming from the startup world, I've been an entrepreneur for quite a while. I started a company when I was in college. Um, Ran that for about 5 years. I was not a fortunate entrepreneur where my company grew to be $1 billion. Instead, my company crashed and burned, and we had to sell it for basically pennies and dollar, which happens. But then I see other people in my network in the circles who were successful entrepreneurs that the companies were they grew to where they wanted to be, and because of that, most of those people think that they were successful because they did everything right, not necessarily because of variance because maybe they got lucky. which you could be a person who does everything right, but you could still be unlucky at the end, or you could be a person who just did everything wrong but got unlucky and still got there. I see plenty of people examples of that in the corporate world, where I see people just failing to the top. The people are on projects, they're bad managers, they're bad employees, but because of their specific team carried them, they keep growing and they keep getting promoted and they keep getting raises. They're not doing that because necessarily they're super talented or super skilled or even deserving it. They did it because they were in a fortunate position. But people just are really bad at really being objective in accomplishments. Some people are too negative that they always discredit themselves, and other people or maybe aren't humble enough and always thinks that they that all their accomplishments because it's 100% how intelligent they were or how great they are at something.
Preach, Mark, preach. A little soapbox here at the end of the episode.
Well, yeah, well, just for example, like people talk about, and we can talk about sports. We can talk about how great Steph Curry is and how many finals he's won. But if we look at it, back when he won his first championship, I think in what 2015 or 2016, I think his team was down 3-1 to Oklahoma City. Sorry, Alex, if you don't follow sports, but the Golden State Warriors were down 3 games to 1 to Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook in the OKC Thunder, and Steph was having a terrible game. I think Game 6, but Klay Thompson decided to put the team on his back and made like 8 3 pointers in a row to help Golden State win that game. So Steph got really lucky that Klay decided to get really hot that game and to carry them to the finals and then eventually being able to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA championships. Also, like if Golden State doesn't beat Oklahoma City in that game, Kevin Durant probably never goes to Golden State, and then Kevin Durant doesn't help Steph Curry win even more championships.
Why you gotta
So it's
bring
just
up the year the Cavs lost, huh? Why can't you bring up 2016 when we won, huh?
yeah, but it's just things like that. Everyone thinks that Steph Curry is great. He wins all these finals because of how talented he is. Yes, he's extremely talented, but he also got really lucky how things played out to win a lot of those championships. Sorry for going on a tangent on off-topic scenarios.
All good. We've entered the episode part of the pod here.
Is this tradition? Is this something that happens every pod?
Not every pod, but a lot of the times we just end up derailing and talking for the last 15, 20 minutes, which is fine. If people don't want to listen to it, then they can just turn it off. But if you're
That's
still
fair.
listening, you should subscribe.
Absolutely. I mean, typically the only reason why I listen to the pod is just to hear my name being mentioned once in a while, which happens on like 80% of the pods. And then
It's
once I do, I'm like,
100%.
great.
First of all, I'd
Oh,
like that.
it's a
It's our bit. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but our bit is that Mark gets mentioned every pod.
there's definitely pods that I've listened to that I did not hear my name, so I have to go back and try to find those pods to see if that's actually a true statement.
All right. Well, any closing thoughts?
I'm really excited about London. I'm really excited to see where this meta is going to shape up, shape out. I don't know. I don't know words. It's fine. But I know a lot of pro players don't like open metas because there's no clear target of what you should be doing. We think Aurora is the best deck, but there's a lot of good other heroes in the A tier that you can take and not be embarrassed to take to a tournament. So I'm really excited to see if our theories that we have of what is going to be playable is actually correct, or if it's truly an open meta.
Yep, it will be interesting to see. Uh, I can't guarantee when we'll have our next episode, but maybe Kevin and Ray will be back. Maybe Mark will be back. Maybe I'll have somebody new on. But anyways, until next time, this has been the IP3 podcast. Signing out.
Thanks, everybody.